Hello, Jeremy. That's not how maybe that is how I'll always begin. But right before I came on, I saw that you were out there. And it's kind of ominous. It says, Jeremy Wooten is watching you. Are you watching me, Jeremy? Kirsten Van Stone, hello. From Canada. Did you say you were from Canada? When I met you, you lived in San Francisco and then you returned to the Great White North. Do I remember that right? Or how did you end up in Canada? So, hey, Mark Kaplan, thanks for tuning in again. I wonder if we'll have a minion of our old friends from Houston. Hey, Mark, Kirsten. Hi, okay, is that your answer, Kirsten? You are indeed Canadian, and I just happened to catch you during your San Francisco days. That was a song by, who's the guy? He had that song. It was a big video song in MTV days, and I don't wanna fall in love. Except hitting the correct notes. Do you know the song I'm thinking of? You're a Toronto girl. No, I don't want to fall in love. I can't hit those notes, but do you know the guy? Good looking and, Kim Anderson. Where are you watching from? This is what it comes to in the days of the virus, in the days of our quarantine, the way we interact with our direct next door neighbors is through video streaming. I've always thought it was funny if you've ever lived with anyone and messaged, like text messaged with someone you live with, but they're in another room, and just to think that the signal is going like up to satellites. It's going through the cables and probably up to satellites and then coming down in the other room to have your conversation. Chris Isaac. So yes, Chris Isaac at least used to live in San Francisco. And in fact, we had the same, I'm not gonna say hairstylist because she was really more of a barber. She was a Korean woman with a very small shop, not fancy at all, in a little neighborhood. And a comedian friend of mine went to her, and then it turns out Chris Isaac went to her too. And I never did cross paths with him the many times that I went to see her in the outer sunset of San Francisco. So, don't want to fall in love. Yeah, I couldn't hit those notes at all. Kim, and everyone. So, I mean, can I tell you, I already told you that Brian May shared my video the other night and was very complimentary. Was that yesterday? Was that just yesterday or the day before? I'm so confused. It's all a blur. It's probably the virus. I'm feverish. Hey, David Levine. David, you'll be happy to hear this. So, okay, don't tell anyone this. This is private, but not that many people are going to see this. Brian May had previously followed me on Twitter and Instagram. We messaged a couple times, not much though. And he finally, he doesn't like that messaging. He gave me his email address about a year ago, sometime last year. But the one time that I wrote to him, I didn't get a response and I didn't hound him. But I thought, this is the perfect opportunity, isn't it? So I sent him a thank you email. And so today we exchanged about 3 emails today, and it was really nice. And I laid the groundwork for something. We'll see. I don't want to get too optimistic, but you can already tell by my smile that I am. We'll see. Tom Hester, Bill Pack. We've got comedians in Austin. We've got magicians in Chicago. We've got Toronto girls and archivists in Raleigh. We've got Lindsay Shepard watching. Hey, Lindsay, how are you doing? If you're still here, I just saw that where you came on, and I don't know. Kirsten, you lived in the inner Sunset. I lived in the inner Richmond. First, I lived in the outer Sunset in San Francisco, like 41st. And Avenue. But then I lived at 7th Avenue in Fulton. Most of the time I lived in San Francisco, I lived at 7th and Fulton, right by Golden Gate Park. We must have lived pretty close together. I'm gonna try to be optimistic. I mean, I'm already happy because I emailed Brian May and he wrote back saying very nice things again. And then we talked about being melancholy. He is, I'm not divulging any secrets. He is prone to depression. I don't know if that's too strong a word. I would at least say melancholy. I just don't know what he would say. But he talks about it publicly, which is really nice, I've never been inclined to open up about very personal things online, on social media. And, when we see someone like a rock star who's doing he's so prolific, you don't know, he has many different projects going on across different fields. And so he seems to work a lot. He's highly functional. And sure, he probably has a support team. Sure. But at the core of it, it's him doing it. I mean, anyway, it's really nice when it's clear that he's happy, but it's fascinating when someone that you wouldn't think could be touched by melancholy or depression is open about it. And it's not surprising. I remember a year or two ago, they did an internship. They spent a month in Las Vegas, and they did about 10 shows at a venue in Las Vegas. And it was very intense and exciting, and he seemed very high through it all. But when it was over, he talked about crashing a little. So it's kind of interesting. I kind of can relate to that. Like, when you're in the midst of something, like when I go to the Lindau Nobel Laureate meeting and spend a couple of weeks doing really intense stuff in Europe, I am so high that I'm almost untouchable by anything negative. But when it's over and I come home to my house and alone, I crash for a while. That happens. So anyway, hi Andrea. I like that friends of mine. Hey Mark Hershon and hey Corky and Bill. Thanks for tuning in. Mark, it's like the old days. Remember? 20 years ago. I know some of you already heard this. I used to do a lot of live streaming. I had a talk show on the internet, and one of my Bay Area friends, Mark Hershon, who I should have seen this past week. I was supposed to return from San Francisco yesterday. I was supposed to have spent a week there. Instead, nothing here. So Mark was one of my frequent guests. He was like the Neil deGrasse Tyson of my show. I had him on numerous times, and he does very interesting things. He has an improv background, and he's worked in the naming industry for a company in San Francisco that names products. And products that they named included the Swiffer and the BlackBerry, and the Metreon, which is just a movie and mall center in San Francisco, and other things I don't remember. But because, so my show, I had a lot of scientists on, like Kirsten Van Stone. Oh my God, 2 of my guests are here. Hey Reed Underhill, how you doing? Oh my God, is it only 2? That's kind of crazy. JD Mack, thank you all for tuning in. I have nothing prepared, but as you can see, that hardly stops me. Mark would sometimes come on as a fake expert. I had authors and I had activists and musicians and comedians and a lot of scientists. And sometimes Mark would come on, and really the only one I remember well is he came on as a nanotechnology expert, Dr. Andrew Minutia. And the puns were flying. And we didn't plan it. I mean, that's the extent that we planned it was what there. He's a nanotech expert, and that's his name. And then we just did an interview where he didn't know what I was going to ask him, and I certainly didn't know what he was going to say, and he didn't know what he was going to say, and that's improv. Hey, Ann. And hey, Bruce. Bill Pack says, that's every performance. High of the stage, crash after. Took years for me to even out the two, but sometimes it still happens. You know, just a typical comedy show, it doesn't generally happen. I'm pretty high on adrenaline after I get off stage, and I'm not prone to go to sleep anytime soon. But the times that I really crash are some of these trips I take that are really fun but really intense, where I work really hard, but because I'm loving every minute of it. And then I come home and then I crash. And I'll tell you, you know, I'm gonna say again, there's memes going around about how, you know, when people are talking about quarantine, but it's actually your normal routine. That's only slightly exaggerated here. I don't even have a pet right now. My next door neighbor, Kim, has tried very hard for me to replace after my second cat passed away, of two, that I should get another one. But so it's a little lonely, no pets, no people, but this has been really nice, even though I don't actually see you. I see you on here. I've been chatting with a lot of people and a little bit of online interaction, but it's been kind of quiet. And then the highlight of my social life is most of my neighbors, a few of my neighbors have dogs, and they all have awesome dogs. They don't have average dogs. Dogs are a good thing, always, almost, but their dogs are extraordinary. Lacey, the wonder dog that lives right next door, Buttercup that lives across the street, and Josie that lives a few doors down. Oh, and Pie is the new dog on the block. Very big, but still puppyish. And so sometimes right outside the window there, I will hear voices as they assemble to start walking their dogs. So today, this is very strange. We had a little social interaction. Everyone was pretty far apart. You know, frankly, we would sometimes be this far apart anyway. I was sitting on my porch, and there was Kim, and there was Karen, and then other neighbors walked by, and at a certain point, there were maybe 7 or 8 people, and it was like, I haven't seen this many humans in one place live in so long. So it's the days of the virus. Quarantine day. I don't know what day to put on it. All I can, you know, so what I'm inclined to put on it is today is like the 78th. Let me see. Today is day 78 of this year. Nothing related to the virus or quarantine. Hello, Therese Susan. You have 2 first names, Teresa or Therese, or Susan Therese, and they're reversed. I'll devote the rest of this live stream to dissecting your name. So does anyone, if you're still out there, and according to this, there could be 13 of you still out there, you got any questions? I prepared nothing. I think we'll go a little shorter tonight, but I really want to make this a habit. Hopefully a good habit, not a bad habit. And, hey, Jamie Vernon, and hey, Anna. You know, it's so funny. You said absolutely, but I don't know which part you were responding to, Teresa. 2 first names. Jamie, how are you feeling? Are you optimistic or pessimistic? So I know how to feel. When my scientist friends with like biomedical backgrounds, I want them to be, Brian, say hi to my friend Chris Yee from Austin, Texas. He's a musician who could help with your music development. Oh, yeah? Hi, Anna. What do you mean? He could teach me how to play piano? But he's from Austin or he's in Austin? You lived in Austin. I used to live in Austin. Mixed. I know. I saw some discouraging stuff today. But I don't know. You know, so many of us are isolating. I don't know. But have I seen the Coronavirus Rhapsody? No, is that to the tune of, my friend Tom Hester was just watching from Austin. I wonder if you know each other. Tom is secondarily a musician, plays guitar and has written some great songs, but he's a comedian, an artist, and kind of well known in Austin. Corky, the Coronavirus Rhapsody, is that what? Is that to the tune of Bohemian Rhapsody? You know what I have seen? I don't know. I don't have it set up to pull up. Yeah, I can't show you this right now, but you know the classic image of Queen? It's from their second album, but it's like the Bohemian Rhapsody video, and they all have masks on. Chris, you're in Austin. You and I can certainly learn piano alongside one another. Oh, learn? Who? If we're learning alongside, who's the teacher? Hopefully you're better than me. I'm just getting started, really, and my real hope is I kind of want to learn music theory and composition. I don't expect to become a great performer. It would be nice to be able to play some stuff, but what I'm really interested in doing is understanding music so that I can compose. I have music in my head. Yes, it's to Bohemian Rhapsody, Corky says, and you'll share it later. Okay, you could post a link to it right here in this, you don't have to right now or anything, but throw it on there. Yeah, hey, Corky, I don't know I haven't talked about this much because they haven't released the videos yet, but what might be the last personal appearance I make for a while, I went to Los Alamos National Lab and I gave a talk and some workshops, and I conducted an onstage interview with Nina Lanza, who is a badass planetary scientist, geologist. She operates the laser that's on the Curiosity Rover on Mars. I mean, cool enough that you operate a laser. The laser she operates is on Mars right now, and they use it to vaporize bits of rock, and then the device is called ChemCam. And there's a camera and a laser, and they get a spectrum. When they vaporize the rock, they can tell what was in the rock. And she's working on the new, I hope this doesn't get in the way of the launch this coming summer of the next mission to Mars that's going to carry, I think, SuperCam, the successor to this one, that's an even better laser camera system. And so, anyway, Corky works in the space program too, so in Houston, Space City. And anyway, she was awesome. She's just really cool. And even if she didn't operate a laser on Mars, she was already cool. So then she also operates a laser on Mars. So does anyone have any questions or other comments? Chris, nice to meet you. And for those of you who miss, I made this video the other day, and most of you have seen me blab about how Brian May shared it on his Instagram page and raved. So I sent him a thank you email today, and we exchanged a couple emails. So if there's little things we have to be grateful for in the midst of all this, I had a pleasant little email exchange with Brian May. Brian, we will rock you, May. Brian, fat bottom girl. Brian, tie your mother down, May. Brian, motherfucking May. That is so cool. Yeah, LOL, Laser on Mars sounds like the name of a great band. Laser on Mars, yes. Oh, in all my talking about toilet paper yesterday during the stream, I left out the one part, which I also think is a great band name. Have you ever heard this phrase, fecal plume? I'm sorry to inject this. Hey, John, you came at just the right moment. Hey, another Austin guy, John O'Connell. Do you know Chris Yee? And Chris, you don't know another comedian, John O'Connell and Tom Hester were both tuned in. And Jamie, are you just setting me up to repeat the story I just told? Yeah, John. As soon as you came in, I was gonna talk about. I was going scatological. Fecal plume. Yes, the name of my new band. But fecal. Have you ever heard that term? Um, I guess I need to look into this. But I understand there has been research on this, where if you go to the bathroom and you flush the toilet, which I recommend. First of all, I'm not saying you shouldn't flush the toilet. But when you do, as you might imagine, yeah, there's a lot of activity and stuff gets stirred up. And I believe they've done some experiments where they laid down on the floor like a kind of, I don't know what they would use, a type of paper or something that's clean that they could then see what's on it. And sure enough, when you flush the toilet, there's a fecal plume of invisible matter that can be projected pretty far. Microscopic particles can be projected pretty far by forces as strong as a flushing toilet. So I just want you to know that. Cover your toothbrush. Yeah, I don't, but sometimes when I'm conscious of it, like as I'm flushing, I am out the door and around the corner. And I'm still imagining that some of those particles are ricocheting off walls and catching up to me. But since we're on this shitty topic, and it's no fault of your own, I'm sorry, if anything, you just have bad taste for choosing to spend your time here with me. But you didn't know I was gonna go down this path. You should have known, but you didn't. And I won't always, but it's that same thing of whenever you smell something. I think some people have this idea that there was an old Cheech and Chong routine about like dog shit, and it was like, it ends with this line about good thing we didn't step in it. But the thing is, once you smell it, I think some people think, we smell it, we better get away. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be any closer than that because I can smell it. I wouldn't want to have any intimate encounter with it. But if you're smelling it, you're having the intimate encounter already. I'm sorry, some of you might be eating Stu Kosh, Mike Krieger. Yeah, John, it is sort of scientific. And yes, Denise, you've walked in mid-sentence and I'm talking about fecal plumes. I'm sorry, close the lid. But you know what? Yeah, close the lid. But the immediate thing I think, if you close the lid, it's not airtight. And in fact, do you know that when water is going through a pipe, do you know what happens if you then constrict the pipe and make it smaller? It moves faster through the smaller part of the pipe. So I think that if you close the lid, it just shoots out the sides even faster, ricochets off everything, hits you in the face, whether you smell it or not. But anyway, my point is if you smell it, it's already all over your face and in your mouth. Thank you, good night. Okay, so Craig, all right. Unlike you people, one of my respectable friends has just tuned in, and we have to stop talking about fecal plumes. And when I say we, I mean the person doing all the talking. So if you're smelling it, you're already, that was well put. Sometimes the way we riff, I've said this many times, but I don't think I haven't said it that many times. Don't judge me. But I have said it before. In fact, Craig, in fact, if you're smelling it, Craig is an old friend who gave me the opportunity to make science videos for Time.com, Time Magazine's website, and he noticed the tendency in the scripts that I would write, that apparently I would often say, in fact. It was a common phrase I used, but it's useful. Why do you think we have the phrase, Craig? Why do we have phrases if not to use them? Get off my back, man. You're not my real dad. And John O'Connell, do you remember this? John said, he who smelt it, felt it. Yeah, Craig and John O. Like, I love this. Fortuitous meetings of friends in the comments of my video. Hey, John. So Craig noticed that I was saying that a lot. Do you remember, John? One time I got off stage, way back, I think in our Austin days. Possibly I'd already moved to LA and was visiting Austin, but I think it was before I moved. I got off stage and you told me that I was saying gosh a lot on stage. So I mentally thought about, how's that for a redundancy? It's redundant the way I said it again like that. I said it again in a redundant way. You said I was saying gosh, and so I thought about it. You know, like you kind of run your act through your head, and I was like, no, I don't think so. You're wrong. And then I watched a video of me, and apparently you had tampered with the video because I was saying gosh a lot, and I was oblivious to it. And I think I managed to edit it out because you pointed it out to me. So fascinating. Do you say that on stage? I haven't noticed. The fecal plume business? No, not so much. But as someone pointed out, it is sort of science-y. But I wouldn't really talk about it at a lot of the gigs I do now. Oh wait, John, what was this? The Venturi effect? What is that? I like that you're being talkative because I had nothing to say except maybe tell you that I emailed Brian May today. How did this topic start? Oh, fine. In all likelihood, it was my fault. I can accept that. You know what's annoying? I don't even know that actress. Did you see this thing about, what's her name? She got in trouble for something she said in a live stream today, and I've already forgotten her name. Better than actually. True. Thank you, Craig. It is better than actually. Jamie Vernon, he does say it. I've heard it in his videos. In fact, yeah, I'm going to have to work on that, I guess. That's what friends are for. Department of Redundancy Department. You can say that again. You've been saying gosh for 40 years. Mark, you do not. You're making that up. Hey, Ricardo Saavedra, a guy that I met on an airplane just tuned in. We've became Facebook. I am Facebook friends with a couple people that I met on airplanes. It's weird. Venturi effect, speeding up of water and vapor when the space narrows. Is that really? Why do you know that? I know you know a lot of things besides sports statistics, that your knowledge of is quite vast, but I know you know a lot of random stuff across a lot of different subjects. But, you know, one woman that I met on an airplane once, I got to watch as her Facebook friend. She got married. So somebody that I just randomly sat on an airplane next to for a while, I've celebrated these, you know, things. I heard that. Thank you. I said it. I'm trying to clean myself up. Oh, I'm not surprised. It's just such a science term, and I didn't recognize it. Maybe that's why. But I'm not surprised at anything you know, really, honestly, because I know you know a lot of random stuff across a lot of stuff. Craig just quoted a really old joke. I used to have a joke I used to tell about. I like to talk about funny phrases, like fecal plume. And I heard that, yeah, well, I fucking said it. That's how it works. I say it, you hear it, it's called a conversation. Thank you. So yeah, what else? What other old bits of mine can you queue up for me? Somehow we got to almost 30 minutes. And you know what, Craig? My little thing here says I'm taxing my CPU at only 29% to 26%. I set the bit rate to be 4,000 constant bit rate, but it's not constant. It's 4307, now it's 4267, now it's 4266. It's bouncing around, and it's not limited to the 4,000 I set, but I lowered it from what I was sending out previously. That might have had to do with the Facebook issue as well. YouTube can handle it. YouTube may even handle 4K streaming at this point, but definitely 1080p full high bitrate. But Facebook is rolling out 1080, but they've been at 720 for years, and I lowered the bit rate a little as well. And I'm only sending out 720. I'd like to send out 1080. I don't know if my system can actually handle it. But my main point is that now I realize that the indicator for dropped frames comes on when you're streaming, even though it says 0. So I haven't dropped a frame. Hey, Mindy Weisberger, and hey, Darlene. Who's gonna be my first live guest for one of these chats? Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. Thanks for tuning in to the live stream on which I have absolutely nothing to say and have so far filled 30 minutes with it. Yeah, you know, I like doing interviews by Skype. I have the ability to record them very nicely, the best possible way. And so the mixing software I'm using, I don't know if I can also run Skype on here, or if I can run it on another machine that I have an older machine. I might be able to run Skype on another machine and feed it in here, but I'll need to buy another device to bring it in. But I'm thinking of experimenting with another piece of software. The only thing is the one I'm using is free and this other one is a subscription model, so I'll have to start paying for it. I'm gonna try it. Maybe tomorrow I'll start my 14-day free trial. The great thing about it is it allows you, it's really well integrated with Skype so that you can bring, it's this, and I can do things like switch the scene to things like this. I can also do things like, I can run a clip like, maybe I'm not gonna play this right now, but here's me interviewing Alan Stern, the head of the New Horizons space mission, and I would just... So tell me about it. So Pluto, there's so much right there to unpack. Tell me, right now I just want to show you. So I could do all that, but I could also bring in a Skype guest, and I think I can create the scene to look however I want it to look. So I'll have a little work to do on that. And also it's gonna be a question of, can I run this, the machine I'm running it on is a laptop. So the CPU and whatever graphics card, they're limited compared to some machines. And will it be able to run that, take a Skype call, run that software, record locally? It'll be a test. But these are days of experimentation, so I definitely plan to do that. Hi again, Mindy. Did you figure out about someone calling in on Facebook chat, or only Skype will work? Well, the reason I'm really, the piece of software I'm gonna start using, I already use 2 other pieces of their software. They're called Ecamm. This new thing is Ecamm Live. But I use a piece of their software called Phone View that I always used instead of iTunes to transfer data from my phone to the laptop. It was easier to get files and other things. And they make a piece of software called Call Recorder, and it integrates right into Skype. And that's what I use to record Skype calls. And I can record them in various quality levels and better than, so Facebook, I'm real skeptical about doing it with skeptical. So Jamie Vernon says Alan wrote about New Horizons for American Scientist. He's the great, yeah, he is awesome. We did about a 45-minute interview. I have 2 clips prepared where we're just side by side, but I have the ability to go, that's the great thing about that piece of software, is I record our streams separately. I can make him full screen, me full screen, and then I composited that side by side shot. And then I can make it a 3-camera shoot. So it just takes a little editing time. But I'll be sharing some of that. But I'm thinking of throwing at least this short clip on, even though it's just without edits, side by side, because I just want to get some of that stuff out there. He's awesome, super nice. He's worked on, he said, either 28 or 29 space missions. And being the head of the New Horizons has been the highlight. It's been his favorite. And he thinks that you know, it was, oops. I almost dropped my controller. I did drop it and then I caught it. he said something about how, well, shoot, why don't we watch it? How about a 3-minute clip? John O says, worst case, you display Skype on a monitor and point a streaming camera at it. Yeah, I'm trying to go higher quality than that, but yeah, there's some workarounds. So how about this? I mean, I don't know what you really like or don't like. And a bunch of you are watching. Could you stand a 3-minute clip about Pluto? And also, this is what the show, so this is evolving. Jamie, remember when you were here and we talked about how people like to see the behind the scenes? That really lodged in my, what passes for a brain. And I've been showing, like I did a live stream on Instagram today, and you can only do that from the app. And I zoomed out at some part. I just had a white screen behind me, but I zoomed out and then did a pan around the room so you could see, and then went back. So like here you see me with this green screen, but you don't really see what the rest of this place looks like. But I've been thinking about that, showing Pluto the dog or Pluto the planet. And instead of shit talk, yeah, it can't go worse. Yeah, so let's just watch this. I'll be right back. Don't go away. But Alan Stern is the head of the New Horizons mission, which a few years ago passed Pluto, and then on January 1st, 2018, passed a Kuiper Belt object called, it was called Ultima Thule at the time. It's been renamed, and I forget the name. Last time somebody looked it up for me. And like I said, this was about his 28th or 29th space mission, and he was head of this one. And imagine, it was years since they pitched the project, years before they got the funding, built the spacecraft, and then launched it. And then it was 10 years before it got to Pluto. So and now it's a couple years past that. So he's been working on this project for quite a long time. Here's me talking to Alan Stern. So tell me about it. So Pluto, there's so much right there to unpack. Tell me what your hopes were for the mission. Like, what would have made it a success for you? And then what did you find?
Right. Well, I'm a student of the history of the exploration of our solar system. And one pattern that's very clear is that every first mission, these are the most prized missions to be a part of. First mission to Mercury, to Venus, to Mars, to Jupiter, every one of them, every time, saddled us with giant surprises that you couldn't have predicted. Mars is going to have dry river valleys, right? And Venus is going to be a toxic wasteland. Nobody knew any of that, right? And Jupiter is going to have moons with oceans and volcanoes. Who ordered that? So, connect the dots all the way out to Neptune. They're wrong every time. So I just said, look, I don't make predictions. We'll find something wonderful because the solar system always performs. And actually, I think the solar system saved the best for last, because Pluto turned out to be wildly beyond our expectations in terms of the grandeur as a planet, with soaring mountain ranges the size of the Rockies, snow caps on them, a beautiful atmosphere, twilight hazes, ice volcanoes, an ocean inside. And that's just the start of it. I could go on and on. Everywhere you look. In fact, at one point, being an acronym guy, I said, let's rename Pluto to SOFI, which stands for something for everyone. It really has turned out to be
How big is Pluto compared to the Earth?
If you sat Pluto down over the Earth, it would just about blot out the United States.
Okay.
So it's the size of a continent.
So that's pretty small to have all this phenomenal stuff that you discovered.
And usually, you're absolutely right, Brian. Usually, the smaller the place, the less complicated. It might do one thing, but in general, worlds like the Earth and Mars way beat things the size of Pluto because it's smaller. And that's not surprising. Look at all the varied geology on the United States, but that doesn't hold a candle to all the varied geology on the whole planet. But we got to Pluto and it upended the paradigm. Here was a small place, 12 million square kilometers, like the United States. And it had more complexity per square kilometer than anything we'd ever seen, except the Earth and Mars.
Can you tell me a couple of your favorite things that you discovered that New Horizons revealed about Pluto?
Everything, you always hear that hackneyed phrase, we're going to rewrite the textbook. I mean, for Pluto, there was no textbook. We wrote it from scratch. So everything we found, just the fact that Pluto is so alive geologically, which no one expected, with moving glaciers and avalanches going on and atmospheric meteorology and snowstorms and, a convecting ice shell. It's just an amazing place. It's really a sci-fi planet.
Incredible. Incredible. So that was Alan Stern and Brian Mallow. And Nate, thanks for tuning in. And Jamie Vernon, thank you the Kuiper Belt object that New Horizons passed last is no longer Ultima Thule. It's called Arakoth, and it's the Powhatan word for sky. And yeah, he's so cool, and super nice. And because I don't miss any opportunity to talk about Brian May, so he's known Brian for a long time, and Brian is officially part of the New Horizons mission team. And Alan, in another part of the interview, told me Brian's name is on some papers they published. He actually contributed. Brian has this passion of stereo photography. On January 1st, 2018, a few years ago, when New Horizons passed Pluto, as it was flying past Pluto and sending images back to Earth, Brian May, guitarist of Queen, took two sequential images, and he assembled them into a stereo pair. And it was published, and it was the astronomy picture of the day at one point. And it's the first, before that day, really, before this spacecraft got out there anywhere near Pluto, our imagery of Pluto was just like a couple pixels. There wasn't much detail. So Brian May is the person who assembled the first stereo photo using the data fresh as it came in to NASA, and assembled a stereo photo of Pluto that you can go see if you're able to view in stereo. So that's pretty incredible. Incredible is the new gosh. In fact, did you know Alan Stern's first spoken word as a child was moon? Is that true? I didn't know that, but I did ask him about the 50th anniversary of Apollo and if he remembered, and he remembered watching it, but he was already hooked on space. And do you know, Jamie, you must know this too. Alan Stern went to the University of Texas in Austin for part of his, I don't know if it was undergrad or grad school. He was at UT in graduate school, as was Neil deGrasse Tyson, while I was an undergrad. And you were just an inkling in your parents' eyes, young Jamie. You weren't there. But I was an undergrad, and I took some astronomy classes when Alan Stern and Neil Tyson, and he said he knew Neil back then in graduate school. When they were walking the halls of that building, I may have very well passed them or been next to them at some point. I have no memory of it. I took a couple classes. I asked them if they were, like Alan said, I could have been the TA on one of your classes, but I took a Astronomy 101 class, and I took a Astronomy and Science Fiction was an awesome class. We read a lot of science fiction stories and novels. Jamie says, the same Brian May that reposted your video? Oh, John O'Connell said that. Gotta go. Hey, Craig, you can't do the crossword while you watch this stream? I'm sure Bill Clinton could have done it while he engaged in this stream. See you later, Craig. Thanks for tuning in, though. Good hanging out with you. Larry Lesser, I don't know what that YouTube link is, but I'm not going to click it yet because God knows what would happen. According to his father, hook 'em horns. So a couple people, John O'Connell is watching from Austin. But John, you didn't go. You went to school in Kansas, didn't you? You didn't go to UT. So yeah, um, according to his father, Moon. Not Mama, not Papa. What were your children's first words? Do you know? I don't remember mine. Oh, but you know what? My parents kept this book. I was going through, trying to get rid of some old stuff, but one thing that I won't get rid of is a lot of old sentimental stuff. And there's a book of like baby's first years that my mom kept records of all sorts of milestones. Some of them were very minor. But I think my first words were in that. And I'm almost sure I saw it and I just didn't retain it because I think it was either mom or dad or... I think my first phrase was, "You're not my real dad." No. Rock chalk? Those were your first words? John, I don't know what that's. Duck and oh no? Oh no? Is that repeating something? And duck. Was it duck like, duck? Like, so, you know, two men walk into a bar, but the third one ducks? That kind of duck? Or she was calling you a duck? There's so many stories here. Which is the correct one? And oh no, is that something that she heard a lot and was parroting? Denise says, my mom said mine were bird, brush, broom, and Mike. You like the bees and then Mike. Was Mike somebody? Or is it microphone? Larry, what is that video? I'll figure it out eventually, but if you want to say. Maybe we'll wrap things up. What time is it? It's 10 o'clock. So most of my streams, I was just getting started around this time. But this one, I think maybe we'll wrap up. Hey, John, are you a fan at all of Steve Vai? Because I've been playing this every night, but... Oh, okay. I had a... Rock chalk, really? I thought that had something to do with a Kansas reference. Kansas University version of Hook'em. And Mike is Denise's older brother, and you said his name. So I know that some of you might be sick of this, but if you haven't seen this, it's not even 30 seconds. When I was in Zurich and I co-hosted this Starmus Festival event, Chris Hadfield played A Space Oddity by David Bowie, just like he recorded a video for it when he was on the International Space Station. This is this awesome, he was a fighter pilot and commander of the space station, and amazing guy. And he plays guitar, and Steve Vai sat in on it on the dress rehearsal. But for the actual show that they recorded, Steve Vai wasn't on this song. And so I'm the only person who has this piece of video. And this is so awesome. It's only a snippet. It's all I got. And I randomly captured an amazing moment that I like better than the studio version. This is, and you can't hear them very well, but Rick Wakeman is on stage playing piano, and Hans Zimmer and a 45-piece orchestra as well. But Chris Hadfield, and listen to what Steve Vai does here.
Detached from the station and because of being with you.
I don't get tired of that. I think that is so awesome. Hi, Lynn Fellman, and hey, Mark Kaplan. My sign-off tune, you know, maybe I'll sign off with a little of that other. Oh wait, did I remove it? No, I put it back. There's another song of his that I knew Steve Vai as a name, but I didn't really know his music. And he was super nice, and I have some interview stuff with him as well. He was really very nice guy, and the first thing I saw him do on stage, I won't play very much of it, and then we'll sign off soon. But hi, Lynn Fellman. You're just catching the end of me rambling and playing with technology. But this was almost so not really knowing, as he rehearsed this original song of his called For the Love of God, and I knew that during the show, I'm not going to be able to record anything because I'm emceeing. So I went right up to the front and shot some of this. And again, he kind of rocks. No surprise he's on everybody's list of greatest guitarists. Check this out, for the love of God. It goes on, but he really likes that lifting the guitar up and letting it ring on its own. But he was super cool. So Lynn Feldman, thank you, and good night, Jamie. And yeah, my sign-off tune. So you guys have been a lot of fun, and this has been an enjoyable way to spend 52 minutes and 12 seconds of my life during the days of the virus, the quarantine days, 78th day of the year, 2020. John O'Connell, Chris Hadfield is also heavily featured on One Strange Rock, highly recommended TV series. Does what's his face host that whole show? Will Smith? Is he the host of that show? I think I watched the first episode of it, and I loved it, and I should get back to it. But lately I was catching up on The Expanse, a science fiction show that's in its 4th season, and that all the science geeks and sci-fi fans have been raving about. But I couldn't get into the first episode over the past couple years, and then finally a few months back, I got past the first episode and then really started liking it. And you know, and not that the first episode was bad, but you ever have that experience with a book or music or a show where the first few times you approach it, it just doesn't resonate with you, and then one day you're in the right mood for it and you like it. So Madhu, do you know that I was streaming on Instagram much earlier today, and Kabiri tuned in from Calcutta. You guys are all separated. John answers my question. Denise said, yep, Vai is a stellar musician. I've been listening, since I met him, I started listening to some of his stuff, and including, you know, when David Lee Roth went on tour sometime in the 90s or something, Steve Vai was his guitarist, and there's that song Yankee Rose that starts with this talking guitar, kind of, and that's Vai. So I've been listening to him. And yes, John says, Will Smith, great. Hey, John Merriman. Boy, everyone in Austin is watching. John O'Connell, John Merriman. I just met a guy, Tom Hester was here before, and a guy named Chris Yee. Austin is representing. Great photography and insight into seeing the Earth from the space station. Yeah, you know, Chris Hadfield, it's with a D, not a T. He's not one of the Hadfields and McCoys. Is that with a T? This is Hadfield, but amazing. He was a fighter pilot, and then he became an astronaut. He flew several missions. He was commander of the ISS. He's an incredibly good speaker on stage. He works the stage and speaks very well, and you know, like no sense of being rehearsed or over-rehearsed. He just knows his stuff. He's quite brilliant. Great speaker. I've seen him on other things. And when he was on the space station, he did a lot of demos. Maybe I should go find some of those. He did some science demos, especially like the way water behaves in zero G is so fascinating. And I remember one, he had a towel that was wet and he wrung it out. And when he wrung it out, you know, the water comes out of the towel, but because of surface tension, it clings to itself. So it doesn't, little droplets might float away, but most of it just stays there in a glob around the towel, and it's just and he would demonstrate stuff like that. It's super cool. So yeah, he's pretty amazing. Yeah, Madhu, I talked to your wife. I chatted with her. She tuned in and she told me that she's there and stuck in Calcutta, and you're all here. So hang in there. Hopefully you'll be together again soon. Yeah, John, you're just, Merriman, you're just catching, John O'Connell and John Merriman, you must know each other, right? I'm probably wrapping up. With nothing to say at all, I've gone 56 minutes. Hey, Sharon, I'm really just, you know what? I'm bad at signing off. I'm really bad at signing off. That reminds me of an old bit of mine. Let's draw one from the archives. It's that, well, you know, like the really old bit was about I ran into, I was visiting Houston and I saw my friend Eric. And Eric has his own company. He's CEO of a software company, a piece of software he developed, built a company around, he became CEO. And at the time, he had 60 employees working for him. That's incredible. I got nobody working for me, you know, just me, and I'm only part-time. That's the really old joke. But in more recent years, I realized that sometimes I'm down on myself for not being a hard worker, like I don't work hard enough. And then I realized, wait a second, you know what? When I'm working on a project, I can work very hard. There's all sorts of projects when I think about it. When I'm working on a project, I work really hard. It's not that I'm it's not that it's that I'm self-employed and I'm my own boss. And it's not that I'm not a hard worker. I'm not a bad worker. I'm a bad boss. It's that discipline part that is so important. So I'm a good worker. I'm a bad boss. Jeff Zamaria, are you watching from San Francisco? I was talking about San Francisco earlier. And of course, John knows John. All the Johns in Austin know each other. Why wouldn't they? But especially when they're running in the same circles. And I suspect you've worked together on something for that comedy festival. But yeah, so I'm terrible at signing off, especially when I'm about to sign off and a new person signs on. And of course I can say, if you wait a few minutes when it's over, you could go watch the beginning if you're really hard up for entertainment. Conservation of Mass is, really, John, that's one of your favorites, an old favorite of? So, you know what, my friend John, we started comedy. You don't need to know the exact year. It was a long time ago. It was last century, and it wasn't right at the end of the last century either. That's all you need to know. But we started comedy within weeks of each other, and we both entered this funniest person in Austin contest in the year of our Lord. And so we go way back. And when I finally came up with the phrase, John, do you remember this? When I finally came up with the phrase science comedian, just about like 11 or 12 years ago, which is also a long time. Maybe I need to reinvent myself and become the Fecal plume comedian or something. Or that's my band. I'm learning piano so I can start a band called Fecal plume. We're a shitty band. You didn't have to say it, I said it first. Anyway, John, do you remember this? When I came up with this phrase, science comedian, and was like, yeah, that kind of describes what I do. And sciencecomedian.com was available. 2 words, spelled correctly, in the .com domain like 10 or 12 years ago. That was so unusual that I thought the fact that it's available is either a really bad sign, either a really good sign or a really bad sign. But it turned out to be great. And John, at some point soon after that, when I told you that I was like, science comedian, that's what I am, and I defined myself as that, and you said, we knew you were the science comedian like 20 years ago. It just took so long for it to crystallize into that phrase, which was very useful for me, and then realize, oh, cut the other stuff away. But in my promo materials, I used to flirt with the idea, David Schwartz, another blast from the past. Hello, David. Even in my earliest promo, I would say things like, he has more science jokes than the average comedian. And I had the brain imagery, and I was flirting with the science stuff, and I obviously had a lot of geeky jokes. So, like, I don't even know how old this joke is, but it sort of defines my worldview in that way. Because the thing is, like, this joke, it's not even about science, but it's more like applying a science worldview to anything. I noticed a long time ago, whenever my mom would lose weight, my dad would gain weight. And when my dad lost weight, my mom gained weight. It was like the conservation of mass within our family. And I had a theory that you never actually lose weight, you just give it to somebody else. Fat can be neither created nor destroyed. It's one of the basic laws of the universe. One time my dad's love handles got so big, they just broke off. My theory didn't predict that. So, like, that's not even a joke about science. It's a joke about my parents. It's a fictitious joke about my parents exchanging fat, but by making it into a science joke. So yeah, it's worked out well for me. Thank you. I'm the consummate host, Brian. Why? Because I introduce everybody and I cross-introduce them. Hey, don't you know you? Hey, you're from Austin. I'm just trying to be a good hostess. Lynn Feldman says, yes, focusing on a project makes us speedy. In between projects, we're percolating ideas. Ideally, Alex Davis, dude. Alex, watching, I assume you should be nowhere else but Asheville, North Carolina, but he used to be one of my neighbors right across the street over there. My neighbor Kim was watching a little while ago. I'm sure she's long gone, if she's smart, and she is. But Alex, how you doing? I hope you and your family are hunkered down and doing well there, and you're good? Haven't talked to you in a while. But Alex is a very talented musician, piano, keyboard player, composer, and if you even mention the name of your company, I'll repeat it. He's also, how's that going? Where him and his partners have created some of the highest quality samples of several different musical instruments, and then they're available to purchase for keyboards with the right software, operating system, I guess, to use these. And where they didn't just record like a little bit of a violin, they recorded it doing many different kinds of, I don't have the right vocabulary for it, but, like really put the violin and a musician from the symphony here, put it through its paces and all the different kinds of changes. So they didn't do just a half-assed job of sampling it, and then you can have a really realistic violin on your keyboard. So I just don't remember the name of his company. But thanks for tuning in, Alex. And so now I think we have fulfilled our contractual obligation at 1 hour and 4 minutes and 5 seconds. So I'm right, Denise, am I right in thinking that the audio and the video have been in sync? Oh no. It now says that I have dropped 16 frames. I'm pretty sure that said 0 a little while ago. So over the past hour, I've actually dropped 16 frames. And I don't know if that can cause some of the sync issues. So sorry for stupid tech talk, but all of this has been an experiment. Ideally, this is going to get a little smoother. Right now, I'm not even trying to make it smooth. I'm testing a lot of things. And if you'll bear with me and maybe even tell some other people, and if you don't subscribe to my YouTube channel, do me a favor. Would you go over to, I'm Science Comedian on YouTube, youtube.com/Science Comedian, and just subscribe to me over there. I'm trying to build that up here in the days of the virus and quarantine and no personal appearances. I'm trying to build up my YouTube channel. So, thanks, Denise. So, everyone, stay healthy, stay safe. Be good to each other. I don't know. Stuff like that. But why not, let's have Steve Vai play us out for a little while. And I hope to see you again. And the lighting's nice. Thanks. It's been in sync. Yeah, John, I'm having these very weird problems where it goes out in sync. I'm going simultaneously to YouTube, Twitter, and both my Facebook pages. Later, when it's available on demand, the Twitter one looks fine, the YouTube one looks fine. But the two Facebook ones are sometimes completely out of sync. And sometimes they're okay on the desktop, but if you look at them on an iPhone, they're totally out of sync. And there's even some weirder, like when it is and isn't. And if you start scrolling around in the Facebook version, it'll lose sync. So it's very frustrating, and it doesn't look professional when you look. A lot of people are probably viewing on mobile on an iPhone, and so it looks great right now. But and some I've done with the green screen, some I've done with just black behind me, and some just white. I have other screens. So anyway, I'm trying to hammer out some of these problems, and it was a little better last night, and I think because I lowered the bit rate, I don't really know. Still at 16 dropped frames. So that's what, if you care, if you happen to notice, when I end, it takes a while to process and think about it. Facebook has to think about it a little, and then you can watch it on demand, and I'd be curious if it appears to be in as tight a sync later, whether you're looking on a desktop or especially a phone. And when it was out of sync on my iPhone, my neighbor's Android phone, it looked good on. So very frustrating. How do you explain that? So if it's not exactly Facebook, but something to do with Facebook and the iPhone, but then some of them were even out of sync on the desktop. So now you're a second off. Are you serious, or are you just messing with me? I should have done this the whole time. That's one way to really look for good sync. So anyway, you guys have been awesome. Thank you for chatting. It's really better if you interact with me. It's much better for me. So, these dropped frames are showing on the live. Now it's a second off. Oh my God. 16 frames is half a second. Very frustrating, but I'll check. What I may have to do is be live and then like on Facebook, just hide them afterwards, after they're not live, and then just post the YouTube version to Facebook. But that's just not ideal. I just want everything to work the way it's supposed to work. And I've done a lot of Googling. Hey, John, your Google foo is so strong. I found other sync problems, but I have not been able to find anyone talking about the exact problem I'm having. And let me just tell you, in case you're up to the challenge, sometimes with this software OBS, the sync problem some people have is if you bring a mic in and you bring a camera in separately, they can be out of sync and you have to set this offset. And you'll see a lot of people on YouTube talking about how you adjust them in the software. That's not what's happening here. My microphone goes directly into my camera, and the video and audio are coming in as one. They don't need to be synced because they're coming in as one signal. They're coming in as the audio from the camera. I am using I have a shotgun mic, and it is just, it's right here. It's really close. So instead of a lavalier, I've got a mic just out of the shot. Anyway, it's going in. So it's not out of sync because of that. And it records a local version, and it's not out of sync. Although it'll be very interesting to see if this version is out of sync. So anyway, enough about that. Slightly a half a second. Wow, it just started happening. I wonder why. I did almost host the search party on ZDTV. Really? I auditioned for some job on ZDTV also. I didn't get it either. But the audio sounds great. Excellent. So I'll play you out with just a little bit more. Unfortunately, I think I can adjust this setting, but this file is going to start from the beginning again. But I'll let Steve Vai play us out for a couple minutes. If at some point you stick around and you see the camera pan over, you can't really hear the orchestra. They're playing, but I was kind of in front of Steve's amp. So Steve's amp is overpowering the entire Hans Zimmer orchestra almost. And I pan over for a minute to show Rick Wakeman. So thank you, everybody. You were great. You're a great audience. Thanks for coming out. And this is how we do it now. There was an old H.G. Wells book called In the Days of the Comet, but it's the Days of the Virus. So I'm terrible at signing off, I'll say for the 100th time. In fact, gosh, actually, good night. Yeah, so I was gonna sign off. That was Steve Vai from Starmus, a dress rehearsal last summer, but then I just saw Ron and James Cecil, another blast from the past, and Ron, a newer friend, just tuned in. And John O'Connell said, "Don't forget to tip your Uber Eats driver. I'll be here all quarantine." I was just wrapping up. And in fact, John is calling me right now because he thinks I'm done. So I'm gonna say goodnight. And thanks for tuning in. And this is the end of an hour, so sorry you just caught the end. Hey, John. Hey, hang on. I came back on and I'm wrapping up, and you're on speakerphone.
Okay.
Um,
Call me when you're done.
no, wait 1 second. I'm signing off right now.
Okay.
I'm signing off right now, everybody. Good night.